Hello, everyone. This is Warhawk Beyond 2040, and welcome to another edition of the X-Men 97 review series. And today we are going to be talking about episode 6,
Lifedeath Part 2. And we are joined once again with the one and only, the badass himself, Rex the Boss 11. Rex, it's great to have you back here again. Hope you're okay.
I am very well. Hey guys, how's it going? Let's talk about X-Men 97, episode 6.
Now, this episode was, for the most part, really good. And this one really shocked me because this episode actually kicked off with Xavier alive and well and walking. Rex, we'll start with you first. What did you think of episode 6?
I mean, yeah, it had a few things that we obviously had suspected were going to happen. The return of obviously Charles Xavier, etc. This was obviously a look into the, is it the Shi'ar Empire?
Yes.
Like
with,
what they have been,
Lilandra.
what they have been doing, since, and obviously during this time, and since obviously we were watching when we were obviously watching in the 90s. And to see Charles Xavier in this position, I mean, I'm presuming it's the suit that he's wearing that's giving him the power, or is it where he is? Like, is he only in the wheelchair on Earth? What is this whole deal? It wasn't really explained as into how he was walking around. Like, I know there are some other things that took place in the comics and in the lore, but we never really got an explanation as into how Charles Xavier was just sort of like completely cured from the illness and the issues that he's had throughout the lifespan of the X-Men. But yeah, I thought this was a decent episode. Obviously, we're in the middle somewhere, so you're going to get things that are a little bit like, well, can we get back to the main story? But, they did a lot of things to make everything make sense and make every character relevant for the X-Men series, because there would have been absolutely no point going through this whole series and not having anything to do with Charles Xavier, knowing that they're obviously going to bring him back in the future anyway.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's in the name, X-Men. You cannot go a show that long without having Charles Xavier. Somewhere in the back of your mind he is going to come back. It's just a question of how they were going to bring him back. Because for those of you who may have seen the last season of the original X-Men 90s show, Charles Xavier was pretty much at death's door. He was dying, and Lilandra took Xavier back to She-Ra, and that's pretty much where he ended up, really. And, obviously, fast forward to X-Men 97, we were told that Charles Xavier had died. So, just like you, I thought, okay, he probably died while he was on She-Ra. But now seeing him alive and well, walking around, I mean, we've seen over the course of the 90s show, we've seen Xavier, when he's had no powers, he's able to walk. So it could be something to do with the suit, as you said.
They never fully explained how that was the case.
But I thought, for the most part, this was a good, solid episode. And I don't know, really, when I was watching this episode, it kind of felt like a bit of a dick move on Xavier's part. I mean, he's alive and well. I would have thought the first thing he would have done was inform the X-Men, look, I'm okay, I'm all cured, but he never said a word. And it was almost a bit like a chiefy move, like, yeah, I'm just on this planet clapping Lilandra's cheeks while living with her. That's how it seemed like to me. I mean, what was your thoughts on those two together?
Yeah, it seemed a bit more like a control thing, didn't it? Like she was controlling him despite him being a psychic. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen how weak he was to her in the series, and how even at one point started to make it seem a little bit like he would sacrifice like his role within the X-Men to be with her. You know what I mean?
Yes,
And
it seemed like that.
I will also point out the voice change. Obviously, some of the actors have returned, some of the actors were unable to return, the voice actors for these roles. And yeah, immediately I could tell that Charles Xavier's voice is not the same voice. But according to my research, it's a person who is a voice actor who's supposed to be a very good voice actor, and I'm sure that he is. But he's putting on the voice of somebody else who's already established. Now, if they'd have just told a new actor to play the role as close to what they thought that they could do, I think it would have been better than them actually having an actor sort of try to mimic his voice, because to be fair, he just sounded like a Canadian version. Sounded very, very Canadian, or that's what he came across to me. And I didn't know if never read if Charles Xavier was Canadian.
No, I mean, I was always under the impression, even going to the X-Men movies, the First Class era, I was always under the impression that Xavier was British.
Yeah, British.
That's what I always thought.
Who's played him in
No,
the
like
live action films?
yeah, the character, I always thought Xavier was British, hence why they always got Patrick Stewart to play Xavier, because he's British. And James McAvoy, although he's a British citizen, he's technically Scottish.
Yeah, but I mean, it's regardless of him being like English or British, I think Xavier is Scottish. I think Xavier's character's Scottish.
He might be.
I think he's Scottish because of the Moira McTaggart thing, and I'm pretty sure that Patrick Stewart is actually Scottish as well. Like, they strategically have chose Stewart and
James
McAvoy.
Yeah.
People thought they chose Stewart because of the look, which obviously that's just fitting to the look. Yeah,
that's
fitting to the look. But at the same time, I think it's more because Stewart, I'm pretty sure Stewart is actually Scottish as well. The character of Charles Xavier is supposed to be Scottish, I'm sure he is, which would make him obviously British in American law, which that's why like they've always had those characters play him. It's the same thing with Magneto. He's obviously supposed to be a European.
Yeah,
like,
he's always been portrayed as European.
He's definitely not going to be portrayed by an American person who speaks. It's going to be by an English or a European actor.
No, that's right. Yeah, I mean, seeing Xavier alive and well, I mean, yeah, it was a big surprise. But like you said before, with Lilandra, you definitely got the sense that she was more of a control freak, just like, no, we're going to be together, but you've got to do certain things for me to be accepted by my people. So yeah, there was definitely some forced things going on over the course of this first episode, because you see at the beginning, you see the She-Ra and the Kree empires, they're all going at it, and and you see like Xavier was kind of like in a way supposed to be held as like some sort of king. You even see over the course of this episode, you see like certain people from She-Ra are not accepting Charles Xavier.
I don't think that they accept any of them. Like, it's the same mutiny or uprising, isn't it? It's the sister.
Yes,
it's right. The sister who is working with the freedom, if not with the freedom fighters. Like, obviously in the original one, it was when they went there before, like Gladiator and all them that were part of the Lilandra's people. But then there's also people that are there that are not fully behind her. Like, I can't remember what her sister's name character is, but she's
Deathbird.
Yeah, she's always showed sort of like that she's like not on her side, and obviously she waits for her chance, and obviously she tries to do the usual dethroning sort of stuff. But of course, this time you get to see like Gladiator and them and fighting against other people from the Shi'ar Empire rather than fighting against the X-Men or whatever.
That's right. And also, one thing that I thought was a bit of a dick move on Lilandra's part was she obviously wants to be with Xavier, but she said, in order to be with me fully, you've got to erase all of your memories of your old life, and more specifically, forget all about your X-Men. And obviously you see some hesitation on Xavier's part. I mean, what was your thoughts on that? I mean, you're meeting this chick who's basically the ruler of an empire, and she wants you to forget all about your old life to be with her. I mean, what did you think of that?
Well, firstly, like 101 in that situation was, right, yeah, obviously 101 in that situation would be like the Wolverine thing, where it's like, is she just using him to get him to help her, but in the way of like, he loves her, but she's doing bad things. We've seen that loads of times in the comics, haven't we, where good guys blindly defend bad people, or good girls defend and support bad people because they're in love with them. It could be one of those things that, because she sort of expressed like she doesn't really care about what Charles's feelings are. She only cares about his feelings towards her, which to me, that would be a concern, because it all could end in 2 series time where she is the traitor.
That's
and
right.
She just wanted the destruction of, like, say, like the Phoenix gene and that to go away. She could have been working with Sinister the whole time. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's multiple angles that they could go with these things. But I just don't like how she's seen as like this all in powerful. But I've never seen any suggestion since the original the original cartoon. I've never seen any suggestion that she actually is that powerful or her empire is that powerful. Her brother, wasn't it? It was her brother who wanted the Emron crystal, and the
That's right.
Phoenix prevented him from getting it. Yeah.
Yes, that was back in the Phoenix Saga.
Now, why are we supposed to feel like these are untouchable people years later when the brother isn't even a part of it now, but they were all subservient to the brother?
Yeah, I mean, they never really fully addressed what's happened after that
Yeah,
whole situation.
that's what I mean. I mean, I was going to say this before when we first started speaking about the Shi'ar Empire. I did think some of this might have been a little bit rushed as well, like as in like I feel like the Shi'ar Empire should have been like drop in every so often, but because they obviously needed to get Xavier back to the X-Men, it was just, oh, this random thing's happening with these people, you know, have your say on this. But then at the same time, it's like I would have been like to have been drip fed a little bit of the Shi'ar Empire stuff so that eventually it gets to that point where it's like, right, we're going to find out exactly what those people are going to be doing and how beneficial that they are to the X-Men storyline. Because I just feel like they've got absolutely no relevance apart from that was just used to get Xavier out of the program in the original series and back in the program in this series.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree what you said. You know, Xavier's return did feel a little bit rushed. Maybe they could have saved his return. I'm not saying the next series, maybe they could have saved it for like the second to last episode, maybe just build it up a little bit, but I definitely felt they rushed it a bit. So, oh, like you said, we've got this situation going on Earth. We need to get Xavier back straight away. I just thought, huh?
Once again, because I do this, and I never did this in any of, well, I may have done it in the early ones, but I didn't do it in the later reviews, in the middle ones. Link it to the wrestling thing, bro. It's the whole thing where it's like you can sort of like keep going back to the same well over and over again, thinking that it's cool.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always work to keep going back to the same well over and over again.
No.
Especially at this point, if they decided to go with the series, where they decided to start the series when Xavier wasn't in the program. So then all of a sudden it's like you always got that. Judging by it as well, I'm going to be honest, this series kind of has exposed that, yes, he's the leader of the X-Men, but they do not need him to be the X-Men.
No.
It's the first time that we've ever seen that. Even from when they've gone back in the James McAvoy and the First Class and all, it's the first time that we've ever seen the X-Men where they actually don't have or need Charles Xavier. Because when he comes back, by the time he comes back, it's not like he comes back and they're in dire straits and he comes back and completely saves the day himself. They still have to do what they've got to do to survive and do what they've got to do throughout the episodes to, you know, work as a team and etc. and overcome whatever type of odds and stuff they've got. But, you know, if he walked in and did the click of the fingers sort of Thanos thing and solved everything, fair enough. But he didn't, did he? He just comes in and it's like inspiration to them guys. But we're already aware now that they can survive without him.
Yeah, and plus, you know, as I said earlier, you know, they don't really need him because Cyclops stepped up to the leadership role officially to lead the X-Men, as we saw when the series started, and now all of a sudden Xavier's back and everyone's like, obviously everyone's happy to see him back, but everyone's just like, oh.
At this point, you can't argue and say that the only X-Men that really strongly needs Xavier at this point is probably Morph, who's once again changing into things that are quite irrelevant and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we said a couple of reviews back. I think that Morph is still not fully over what Sinister did to him. I think that's part of why he's going that way. Well, we see over the course of episode 6, we see Xavier refuses to renounce his memories of the X-Men, and this leads to a battle between the Shi'ar Empire and Deathbird's supporters. Now, this next thing that comes up, we see Xavier pulls everyone into this astral plane, which transforms into like a classroom. And this is where I thought this was quite a unique way. He learned the truth about Gambit's death. I mean, what was your thoughts on this? Because I would have thought he would have learned about Gambit's death when he comes back to Earth, but he actually learned about him dying during this astral plane in this make-believe classroom. What was your thoughts on the way you found out the truth?
I mean, it was a bit strange, wasn't it? All that entrapping the other members of the thingy. I mean, it just goes to show. I think it was more to do with the link that he's got between him and the X-Men, as in
Yeah,
with his psychic powers and his abilities, they're so powerful that he can never, once he's had that, let's just sort of say like intimate brain moment with you, you know, no pun intended, but
Mm.
like he's had that moment with inside of your brain. It's almost like you're interconnected with him from that. So the people that he cares about the most, i.e. Wolverine, you know, Cyclops, Jean, Gambit, Jubilee, etc., the team,
yeah,
when they're in any danger or anything, there's nothing in the universe that can be hidden from Charles Xavier. His
no, that's
mind
true.
spans the full universe. So it's like, it's a little bit like, once again, a little bit of the contradictive stuff that we've seen where it's like 1 minute he's dead powerful and he can control certain things, a bit like Jean, where we know she's a super level mutant, but it's how they channel into using those powers and using those things. Charles, obviously, I don't know, must have got some kind of, I mean, to be fair, like looking at it now, like it makes sense for Charles Xavier, but then it also, you then question, wouldn't you, like what about all them other things that happened in the previous 4 episodes?
Yeah, I
Why
know.
did Charles not feel to come back then? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the X-Men. They're going to end up constantly getting themselves in death-defying situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the way Xavier learned the truth about Gambit's death, which obviously spurred him on to come back to Earth. I just thought maybe this sort of thing could have happened, like maybe towards the end of this series, like second
Mm.
to last. Just like you said at the beginning, it just kind of felt a little bit rushed. Oh, Gambit's dead. I must return back to Earth. Hang on a minute.
So concerned about Gambit, you wouldn't have left him in the first place.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And not just that, weren't you just about to, renounce all your memories for this queen? I don't know, really. Just 1 minute he's like, oh, I want to be with her. The next thing you know, well, hang on a minute, Gambit's just died. Oh, crap, I better go back to Earth and see what's happened. I
I
don't
think it
know,
could have
really.
been a sort of hint of, like I said, because they're always interconnected. This is Charles showing the Shi'ar Empire. I would never not be connected to the X-Men, even if you make me denounce and say that I have to forget what I think. I'm still gonna get these.
Yeah. He's got such a deep connection with his team, especially the ones who've been there from the beginning. It would be really hard for him to forget all about them because they're a huge part of his life. I don't think you could just switch that off. But yeah, this was a good moment. Him learning the truth about Gambit. But I just thought maybe this could have been saved for another episode when he's back on Earth already, and maybe just like ask everyone, so what's been happening while I've been away, and then the team could have
And there's
told him.
also an element as well in this that I caught in the films that I never really noticed it in the original series. But this overwhelming thing that Xavier is supposed to be saving mutants,
Yeah,
but he seems to care shitload more about the ones that are a part of his team than anybody else.
yeah,
Because obviously, like you say, like he still left them and went with the Shi'ar Empire.
yeah,
He didn't care about any of them to take them with him. He didn't care about any of them to check in. He didn't care about any of them to give them updates, anything like that. Like they're basically talking that the professor's dead in the first couple of episodes, yeah?
well, that's what we were
But
led to believe.
then all of a sudden he returns because Gambit. But it's like, so what? You care about Gambit more than the other million potential X-Men or mutants that are on Earth that maybe they don't want to be X-Men. You know what I mean? Why do you
Yeah,
care more about Gambit? Because he's part of your team. But then this is the problem with this. Like, once again, it's a little bit like wrestling where it's like, so you're in a faction and you want everyone to believe that you care more about this character than faction. But then even if it's a different gimmick, the same character, like Chris Jericho, played a different faction leader a year before that was like everybody's equal. So it's very difficult to see, you know what I mean? Very difficult to
yeah,
see a leader play one leader and then 5 minutes later he's playing another leader. And that's what it feels a little bit like with the X-Men, where it's like 1 minute Xavier's saying his whole purpose in the original films was to reach out to as many mutants, as many as possible to save them. But it seems to me like he's just reaching out to as many mutants as possible so that they can join him.
yeah. No, I totally agree.
Now, if that's
That
the case, just say, we are the X-Men and we want to turn all mutants into X-Men because then they can do the right thing with their powers, etc., etc. But that's never what they've said. They've never, ever said that they want all mutants to become X-Men. They said that they want to save all mutants from like you know, like bullying and obviously discrimination. Because obviously we know as the audience, we know what the mutants are actually based on. They're obviously based on black and gay and, you know, transsexual people, etc. You know, basically the smaller minorities of people.
Yeah, they do definitely hint at that over the course of the series. They do, they do make little sly references to that. So while this is all going on, we also see in this episode, because this is essentially part 2 of Life Death, which carries on from part 1 of the same name, we see here Storm is still with Forge, and we see her using the mother's spell book to get rid of the demon. So this is the episode that Storm essentially gets her powers back. And what did you think of this moment, Storm getting her powers back and her getting the classic Storm costume from the comics?
Once again, a little bit Xavier-ish. I think that could have been waited on for maybe 2 or 3 more episodes. Like, is Storm that relevant in episode 7, 8, and 9 leading up to the finale that we need her to immediately have her powers back and have the classic look, costume, etc.? I mean, it's good for nostalgia vibes, and it's good because it follows the storyline of the way that it went. But once again, it's just one of those things. And I feel that we're being a little bit more overly negative now than we were before on those quick fire ones because we've got the opportunity to do this now. But at the same time, I'll say it's not a bad thing.
No.
But I feel that they will look back in the long run and think maybe we could have stretched this out to 12 or 13, 14 episodes to give people, you know, that extra little bit of just warrant to it. Because to be fair, I'll be honest, I kind of lost a bit focus towards the middle and end of the series with Storm and Forge because I couldn't work out 1 minute, obviously, they're just friends and he's just helping her. Next thing, we've just time jumped forward and them in some kind of love relationship. So at that point there, I'm a little bit confused at that point there. How have we got to here?
Well, I mean, in this episode, you see that Forge has been poisoned and they go to the cave to look for this rare cactus that can cure him. And that's where Storm's confronted by the demon called the Adversary. And this is what leads to her getting her powers restored. And all this was done purely because she overcame her fears. I'm not sure how I feel about that, really. I mean, yeah, I get the whole overcoming your fears and all that, but I don't think that should have been the reason why she gets her powers back, because this, not to like bring the Smallville reference into it, this is kind of like the same thing with Clark in Smallville. He couldn't fly because he mentally saw himself as a human, and once he didn't see himself as human anymore, then he could fly. This is what it kind of reminded me with Storm. I mean, what did you think of that?
I mean, it's because of the fact that around this time, I think Claremont was trying to neutralize and mutinize Storm away from being overpowered goddess, basically, because obviously they were planning on obviously making Jean more of the powerful person in there. Like, we've got this Jean character sitting here not doing that much, but Storm is a goddess, and I think they wanted to neutralize her a bit more, so they took away her powers and then realized we're going to give the powers back. Now, I don't know how accurate it was to the comic books, but yeah, it was a little bit like, I know Storm comes with all these advocates because she is a goddess, but she comes with all these, she's got this fear of claustrophobia, she's got this fear of this, fear of that, fear of the other thing. And it's like, right, so she comes with like caveats, even though she is a very powerful mutant, same way with Jean, same way with some of the other more powerful comic book characters. It's that their powers get drained easy, or they're not comfortable in certain positions, or something's completely like kryptonite to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I didn't really have a problem with the way that they did with Storm, to be fair. They had to give her powers back at some point.
I knew that.
It's the whole, once again, like wrestling, guy gets suspended and then reinstated because like the new authority figure comes in and says, no, I'm not having that. He needs to be on the show every week or whatever. Let's bring back Stone Cold or whatever. And then, he comes down, beats people up, and everyone's happy for the next like 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. It's all just please the audience. Like, okay, let's just give the people what they want. Let's give Storm her powers back because we can't go the show that long.
I can tell why they picked her. I can kind of tell why they picked her that storyline above any other one to do in the first series, because it really did highlight Storm. I feel like we spoke about this in a joking way last time, but all this mythological power of this and power of that stuff that Storm was doing like 15 or 20 years ago, it went over a lot of people's heads because as 12-year-olds, we didn't really understand, or 8, 9, 10-year-olds, we didn't really understand how powerful that she was and the fact that she's not a mutant, she's a goddess.
That's right. No, I mean, to see Storm emerge not only with her powers, but to actually see her in her original costume from the 70s, that was a good geek out moment for me. I just thought, holy cow, we're actually going there. We're actually really embracing the comic book roots. Storm in her classic black and yellow costume. It was classic. I enjoyed that. And, you know, I'm not really a fan of the whole Storm with a shaved mohawk hairstyle. I know that was something they did in the 80s. I wasn't really a fan of that look. I like the proper traditional classic Storm hairstyle, you know, the long white hair with their black headpiece looking more like a weather queen. I love that look more than the classic Storm look from the 90s where she wears all white. I weren't really a fan of it. I like the more original look. It's just classic stuff. Said after Storm heals Forge, they learn about the attack on Genosha, and this quickly leads to the reveal of the person behind the attack of Genosha.
And we learn that the person behind the attack was none other than Mr. Sinister himself,
who is confronted by Trask, the creator of the Sentinels. So this is kind of like now bringing us up to the end of episode 6, and we see Mr. Sinister says to Trask, Genosha was just the beginning. I mean, what was your thoughts on Mr. Sinister revealed as the one behind the attack on Genosha?
Mr. Sinister, I mean, his game plan is always going to be quite formulaic from the start, isn't it? Because we knew what he was into from the first couple of series, and we knew that there was going to be a bit of a rose gallery of sort of villains and etc. people involved. But the reveal, it just made me know, right? Game on, boys. Let's get this team working, clock in.
That's it.
Because we now know, at least we now know Magneto is, he might not be on our side now because of everything that's gone off, but he's certainly not on their side. So
no,
he is over there. Let's get him over there. Let's focus. Because obviously, like I've said from the start, Magneto is truly always going to be the adversary to the X-Men because that's how the X-Men stories have been designed over the years. But yeah, Sinister, I don't really see him as the big bad in this. Like I say, all this rogues gallery of Bolivar Trask and other people like that teaming together, it just goes to show that they were presented as threats in the 90s series because nobody was really aware of who they were. But now we fast forward into this series, we now know how easily, and not easily, but we know how the X-Men deal with them. They're not scared of them. They're not afraid of them. It's not like any of these, since Sinister did the whole island thing, have really trapped any of the X-Men. I mean, to be fair, I remember the Sinister even working with the X-Men when all that virus came over, the cable virus came in one of the late series. He starts working with them, doesn't he? Because he even gets his own like origin episode at some point.
Yeah, he did. One of the later seasons, he did get a little origin episode about how he became who he is.
And it's just all a bit weird, if you ask me, like everything about his character. So yeah, to see him was nice. To see him back was nice. But if I'm honest, I never seen him as like the be all and end all of the big bad. I knew somebody else was definitely coming through him or because of him. Somebody who he would then either be subservient to, or like Apocalypse, he'd be more powerful than him.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, Sinister, you know, he's my favorite X-Men villain, but as you say, he is one of the big bads, but he's not what you call the big bad. You know, obviously there's other villains out there who are bigger than him.
You know, at this point, not to give any spoilers away, but just the way that the whole series ends on the oh dear, yeah, like that villain there makes me think of things are about to change.
Yeah.
As regards to when I see Mr. Sinister, I just thought, they're gonna have a headache for the next couple of episodes, or something like that.
Yeah, and Cyclops ain't going to be keeping his composure for long with Sinister around.
It's basically a former world champion who might be a bit of a threat, but basically has been brought in to put over the new champion.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's way too early in this champion's like title reign for him to be facing off against anyone that might actually beat him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
That stuff.
So that is going to be it from us. We are going to wrap this up now. And before we do, we're going to give our rating on episode 6, Life Death Part 2. Rex, what would you rate this episode out of 10?
To be honest, I'm going to drop it down a little bit because there was so much going on in this episode. This felt like it was one of those, they pieced together bits that were part of shorter episodes when they were first formatting it. Like this could have been like episode 12, 16, 18, of the 24 episode series before they decided or changed the mind to longer episodes or whatever took place. But yeah, I'm just going to give it an 8. I'm going to drop it down a little bit to an 8. I think it could have been better. I think there's certain things in this that it progressed too fast and there wasn't enough before for it to be a subjective sort of talking point. So many characters, so many different X-Men or characters from the X-Men series in this very episode, and not just talking about the ones that Morph was changing into. There was just so many different characters. You couldn't really absorb a lot what was going on. You just know the talking points, which is probably why we've gone on longer in this than we have in any of the other ones, but not by default. It's because obviously it wasn't a bad episode. It was watchable, but at the same time, it was one of those that you expect sort of episode 4, 5, 6 in the middle filler. And then we're now going to get leading into let's see what's going on with the big bad here.
Yeah, I'm definitely agree with you on that. I was actually thinking that in my head when we was talking about this. Yeah, I will definitely give this episode an 8 out of 10. It was good. It was watchable, mostly enjoyable. Certain parts were a little bit rushed. Maybe some parts, as you said, could have been drawn out a bit more for a couple of more episodes. But I liked what we got here. I thought it was pretty solid for the most part. But yeah, I think that this one would definitely settle for an 8 out of 10. Maybe it wasn't as strong as some
that's
of
what I
the
mean.
previous
It's
episodes.
one of them ones. It's one of them ones that we've said in the past, isn't it? When we've reviewed series and episode by episode, it's like it's not a bad episode because the whole series is watchable on whole.
Oh,
It's because
absolutely.
this is one of the worst out of the series, or one of the most irrelevant, or it's relevant, but it's because it's so relevant. There's so much stuff going on in the episode that it doesn't just go enter problem, solve. Enter problem, issue, get together, work out a plan, solve it, bang, get rid of the bad guy. It's not one of those episodes, is it? It's a
No.
tie up this end, open this bit here, find this bit, this guy returns.
Yeah,
And we're supposed to just
definitely.
absorb all of that in one, full swoop, bearing in mind that this was where it was coming out every week now. So it wasn't like we were getting to watch 2 or 3 episodes at once. If you binge watch this, you might not have any complaints with this episode. But to wait a week for this episode, and I did, to wait a week for this episode and then watch it, it wasn't that, it was underwhelming, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it does fall a bit short, especially when you look at what came before. When you had,
and what comes after.
Especially, you had the first 3 or 4 episodes, or even 5 for that matter, which were incredibly strong. And then you get to this one, it's like, well, it's good, it's enjoyable, but compared to what came before, yeah, it was pretty weak. I agree.
Yeah, this is why I suspect that it wasn't supposed to be 40-minute episodes, because there's a point where you're always going to run into a problem when you change the time format. That you're going to have an episode that is just watched based on straight popularity. This is a villain of the week Power Ranger first series episode. The program was so strong, no one was questioning anything at that point there. So we're not going to question anything. It's looking back subjectively where it's like, this is definitely the worst out of the 6 episodes that have been out so far.
And that's not to say that this episode was terrible. It wasn't terrible, but as you say, when you look at what came before, it kind of is. But that doesn't mean it was really terrible.
Set a high bar. They set a very high bar.
They did.
And if you set a high bar in a series like this, then the bar has to be met constantly. So we're not here to lie and debate. It was not unwatchable, definitely watchable, but it was subjectively the worst, I feel, out of the episodes that have come so far. Maybe there may be an episode that is more worse than this. Who knows what we'll say in the next few reviews? Stick around for them. But at the same time, you have to understand that this, for me, after watching all 6 episodes, I definitely knew, right, this is the one where they meet that. We're either going to hit a brick wall and it's all going to go to pots because we know we haven't got much coming up, or this is the distraction so that it's the calm before the storm, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Well, we're going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on episode 6, Life Death Part 2? Did you enjoy it? How do you feel about Xavier being alive and well and walking? Were you shocked? What was your thoughts on Lalandra trying to renounce Xavier of his memories and forget all about his old life? Do you think maybe that was a bit controlling on her part? And also, what was your reaction to Storm getting her powers back and learning the truth that Mr. Sinister was the one behind the attack on Genosha? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and we will see all of you next time for another edition of the X-Men 97 review series, where we are going to be talking about episode 7. So make sure you don't miss that. Rex, this was a pleasure as always.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for having me, and we will see you in the next one, guys. Peace out.
See you in the next one. Bye for now.